Welcome to the DS Show. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is Daanish Soomar, and you're tuning in to the very first episode of the DS Show. I'm thrilled to be here with you, embarking on a journey where we'll be meeting a diverse range of personalities from the media and entertainment industry, peers in the Anaplan community, and other inspiring figures in my professional network. Kicking off our series, I'm honored to introduce our very first guest, my good friend, Geoff Lyn, the Vice President of Finance at Mar Vista Entertainment. Geoff has a wealth of experience in the entertainment and finance sector, and I'm eager to jump straight into a great conversation. Welcome to the show, Geoff.
Thanks for having me, Daanish. Excited to be here. Excited for the new podcast.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Do you want to quickly just give the audience an introduction of yourself and what you do at Mar Vista?
Yeah, so I am the head of our FP&A group and also in charge of our production finance teams and our operational reporting teams for residuals and participations. And been at the company for just 5 years tomorrow, or 2 days from now. And previous to that, I was a big four accounting firm doing public audits for the entertainment and tech industry, gaming industry, and was there for about 10 years. And been inside the Anaplan world with you since for over almost 2 years now, and we've been working on a lot of great projects together, but always trying to figure out ways to handle the volume of data that we deal with, especially with the number of movies that we're producing at Mar Vista. So that's how we kind of came to be. So
that's fantastic. I know we chat every day, and we always have like great conversations and ideas and different topics. And I think this will be a good way for the audience to kind of see what our day to day is like, just our kind of camaraderie and how we can interact. And I think it'll be fun for the audience.
Oh, I'm excited to share that. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Well, before we jump into some of the more media questions, media and entertainment questions, do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what Mar Vista Entertainment actually is?
Yeah, so we're a production and development studio. We kind of do everything from start to finish as it comes to producing movies, and a lot of our movies go onto platforms, and we're kind of historically known for a lot of our holiday movies for going straight to TV, and we do a pretty heavy volume, but we do a lot of different genres and mixes and different budget levels. So that's kind of very, very diverse set of different types of movies, and we sell internationally. So we distribute throughout the world, and with that comes with the normal challenges of tracking our content accounting with a big library over 800 films. I think the number's higher, but much higher than that. But we've been producing that many films for probably around 60 plus films for the last 5 years. And so that's really keeps adding. And now we hit over 100. So we're really ramping up, and the need to manage that is always a challenge logistically and operationally. So we're always looking for ways to leverage any type of systems to our benefit for efficiencies. Anaplan's a big part of that, but we also use a lot of other systems that kind of connect for our rights management and for our ERPs to kind of all speak to each other in the right way. So it's been a journey since I started, but it's been great at the same time. These challenges kind of present ways to kind of unlock things that exist in really exciting ways. So that has been a big, I don't know if it's a competitive advantage, but for our company, just being able to manage that volume operationally has been super critical for us for reporting needs and also for internal purposes as well. So that's kind of the high level of what Mar Vista is, but we're always evolving. Being a part of Fox for the last 2 years as well, since we got acquired, we keep, finding new challenges to increase our volume, which we have since, and it's been quite a amazing journey there. And working with the great people at Fox too as well, and kind of on their journey as well. So just to kind of give a high level there, and yeah, no, been excited to kind of keep continuing our journey together. We're
Yeah.
always trying to figure out ways to manage that.
How can you talk a little bit about what the before and after was like? Because you guys are now a Fox Entertainment company.
Oh, I mean, what's been amazing is just the appreciation for our culture, and Fox has been really great. Us as well, just from uh, meeting people here in LA and New York, but also just seeing what they've been doing, and they've been very supportive and like equally appreciative of what we've been doing as well. So it's kind of has like the we're able to maintain that small family startup company but within a public company. And so that's been, and having gone through a lot of public audits and seeing that evolution, I feel like it's pretty unique in that we've been it's been special in that sense where I haven't seen this kind of support in a way, and that's been always been great. Because in terms of continuing what we value before we, was part of Fox, we had to, even at a small medium company, we had to figure out ways to unlock the technology to our benefit with the limited resource we had. And now here we have, much more support, which is really great. And so that's all been very positive, I would say. And also being able to maintain, what kind of makes us great at the same time. So I would say the before and after, it's been good, and it's allowed our teams to kind of have both experiences, if you will, within a private and small company. But I think it's pretty unique. So no, it's been great overall since the acquisition.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, I know you guys do a lot of scripted content when it comes to your production, but I'm also aware Fox does a lot of or a lot of decent unscripted content, right? That's part of their strategy. Can you talk a little bit just in general? Maybe not, you don't have to dive into anything Fox is doing specifically, but just in general, the rise of unscripted content within the entertainment space?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good question. We just came out of the strikes for some of the guilds, and I think the rise of unscripted it was before that. I think it definitely presents a different type of content that people are really eager for, and it's definitely here to stay and grow. And I think that's evident across how everybody's thinking about it. But in general, I think that rise, I think people appreciate, I'm just personally speaking, I think people like experiencing kind of raw emotions, like the more unscripted it feels, the better. There's always some element of organization there sometimes and different networks and shows, but I think the general sentiment is I think there's a big market for it, and people do appreciate that. So yeah, no, it's definitely here to stay, grow. So it's definitely a balancing act, if you will, I think, between the two.
And would you consider sports as part of that too?
Oh, huge. Yeah. I mean, sports, I think everybody's kind of leaned on that since, what's happening to linear TV. That's probably the main thing that's been, I guess, the silver lining. People still need and want live sports. So that, I think, has been still a big question mark across every big entertainment company of like how to leverage that the most. But yeah, no, it's definitely the industry has definitely gone through some big changes the last 5 years, and so, or more than that, I should say. But yeah, and scripted is definitely growing for sure in light of that.
Yeah, you mentioned sports and live TV. Can you talk a little bit more about just generally the transition from linear to streaming and what that kind of has done to the industry as a whole, like some of the impact that has had?
I mean, it's pretty big across the board. I think nobody will deny that, but I think it's just the changing of viewing habits with the changing of technology, and just being able to get content to people the way they want to consume it, and a lot of it that was a big push, was from people want things on demand, as they want it. People have their day jobs and they can't always be there, or they have family things going on. You can't always fit this like live schedule that linear used to always be, but people would kind of work around that. I remember trying to like make sure we were home to watch a show, right? That was like, Sunday night or something that you're just watching. But now you have that flexibility. You don't have to make that kind of sacrifice or change to your schedule. I think people, it was pretty evident, but yeah, no, um, it's definitely changing and not going back to how it was. Let's just say, put it that way, for sure. But I think what's interesting is seeing how all the different companies are trying to address the new viewing behaviors, and just, um, you know, it's still evolving still to this day. I'm just shocked just to see what goes on within Google and TikTok and all these things with the newer generations. I feel it's crazy to start talking about generations when you get to a certain age. So it's funny to see like your viewing habits are a little different, but I get on those your rabbit hole trains too, and it's interesting for just it's almost so unpredictable in a way, but then there is a level of just trying to see where the tides are turning, and on what movement and what's going to be next. Everybody's trying to figure out that $1 billion question for sure. What's next?
Yeah. And actually, I think part of what's next might be related to AVOD, right? Because I think Fox Entertainment has AVOD kind of, built into what they're doing, right? So can you talk a little bit about AVOD and, some of the ads that we see, like what that's going to look like?
Yeah, no, I think, Fox has Tubi, and I love the service in the sense that it's a very big mutual benefit for the viewer and the company, and being able to give content to people free. I think that just opens up your market, to people, to more people that can't necessarily always go to streaming services or have as many streaming services as there are today. So it's definitely costs are starting to climb up back to how it used to be with the big cable bundles and all that. But I love the idea of, and I think it's caught on fire because of the way I think this kind of showed up earlier years ago in the gaming industry, when, mobile phone games were the most successful ones, were those that were free, and people were trying to wrap their heads around that from the gaming industry. So I thought that was exciting to see, just prove out like you can make billions of dollars and you don't charge a penny to get people in. So, and you only have to monetize a very small fraction of that. So it's nice to have. I think AVOD was kind of a result of that. And if you pop on to any of the platforms, but especially like Tubi, in there, so much content today. Like, and it's amazing to realize it's free. You just need internet. That's the only thing you need to pay for at the end of the day. And I think it's a wonderful service, and it gives everyone an opportunity to access content, just like they would through Netflix and all that, but in a very cost-effective way for everybody. So it's definitely, and we've seen that kind of change across all the other streamers adopting some element of it in their service offerings. So yeah, no, I think it's a very good. It's definitely growing still. So that's the good part about it. But I think it's for good reason. That's how people want to consume it too.
You mentioned gaming as a potential influence for the space. What do you see as the relationship between games, TV shows, movies? We've been seeing a little bit more like connection between what's produced in the gaming world and what you see in the movie theater, for example.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge gamer, and I love what's going on right now in general, where there's been this like, general interest and proven concepts of, bringing, IP over from the gaming industry into the series or film, and like, that transition was pretty rough a long time ago, so there was a lot of hesitation before, but I feel like now it's, with like shows like The Last of Us and other shows that have just been super successful, that like it's just exposing people to gaming more, where they're like, okay, that Medians was able to kind of merge great storytelling with interactive play and really fun engagement, where you could be engaged for 40 to 100 hours versus just a 1 hour show. So I think there's a lot of everybody's seeing what they could do next with it. I know Netflix is trying to do something with gaming. I haven't tried it myself, but I just like the idea that having some sort of interaction with your entertainment or having some way of influencing, what you're seeing and the end result is kind of exciting. But what happens next, I don't know. It's still, I guess, a big question mark of how people are going to integrate gaming with entertainment in the new space and all the new platforms. I think that'll be exciting to see. Obviously, Netflix is doing that now, which is kind of, I think it's all positive, and I'm sure people are going to follow or figure out a way to do it better till they get the formula right. But yeah, no, I think gaming has always had that ability to tell stories in a very great interactive way, super addictive. And then obviously, if you have like other ways to engage your team, we have a big gamer group at our team, so we like to use that as a way to for team building, and also they're always lots. There's so much there. It's like a wealth of IP is out there too as well. So I love the space. So yeah, one of my favorite topics outside of film and entertainment and series.
Yeah, we can stay on the topic for a second here too. So could you imagine like if a production company ever decided to partner with a game studio?
I mean, it's happened, already. And some of the bigger gaming studios have created their own film studios. Some of those have worked, some haven't. And then there's also, I think, because it's not their expertise, I think sometimes they really need to partner with somebody. So that's definitely happened, I would say, with, what happened with The Last of Us, with Sony, Naughty Dog, and HBO, Warner Brothers, Discovery. So I think that will continue to grow, to your point. I think there already is. I think Amazon's coming out with Fallout, which is one of my other favorite games too. So, you do need a big investment into some of these IP because they're super expensive already as a game. Forget trying to create a world. So I like seeing what's going on there. Those relationships are building, and it's pretty exciting to see what's going on. So I hope to see more of it.
Yeah. I think lately too, there's been this appeal towards franchising or franchise titles rather, right? Where you see like before maybe you used to get Spider-Man or Superman or Batman like once every 4 or 5 years. Now you're starting to see that kind of rinse and repeat model a little bit more. Can you speak to some of kind of the trends there? Like, is that something you've been noticing too?
Well, I think I was always never a big fan of like making a 5th Spider-Man of the same topic, of the same story, just with like 5 different Spider-Man. It's like, how many times can you tell the story that was already well told? Maybe not. I think, the Dark Knight series, I think that was awesome. We're repeating that, but not repeating it like. I think Marvel and them are trying to figure that all out, which is part of like, you can't overuse an IP as well, because eventually people will grow tired of it. So you have to continue to innovate. And I think, that's something we're pretty cognizant of, and trying to always just look for new talent, new ideas, and trying to like, nurture theirs rather than trying to like, copy an idea from, and do it 10 times over a course. So I think there's, that's balancing out. Like, just personally, I don't like seeing it overused, because I do like the idea of bringing new ideas to the table, because there's so many great ideas out there, whether they're gaming, they're books, there's no reason to try to overuse something. If it was done right, leave it as is, and find the next thing. So I don't know what the trends are in general. That's just me speaking candidly from what I want to see, because I love just seeing brand new ideas just come out. I think that's what makes us most excited. That's, if we think about the boom of the streaming industry, I think a lot of great ideas or series just was born from there, so they were original. There were things we never saw before. So I want that to continue, rather than us trying to just continue to leverage things that were successful. I know that's very safe, but there's also that element of, you got to take risks, and you have to like, find new voices, find new ideas. So I think I would like to see the trend kind of change a little bit there, if possible. But yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, actually, I attended a media and entertainment conference last year, and it was interesting because in the morning there was a panelist of producers that were kind of speaking on this topic, and a lot of their position was it's dampening creativity, right? Whereas later in the afternoon, we had some executives that were presenting, and they were talking about how it's kind of more safe, consistent, home runs for them, right? So can you speak about maybe some of that balance that has to be there between like creativity versus, earning that guaranteed revenue from some of these titles?
No, it's a great question. You have to, you can't take, unrestricted risks. And I think you have to approach things like, with the right risk adverse mindset to some degree. Like I think it's important that you have a balance. You definitely want to have things that definitely are financial successes. That is important. And so that's why it definitely happens and continues to happen. And I think that's a good strategy in general, but it can't be your only strategy. And so you have to have, it's like, how much do you, invest in that other, area and take risks and just try something that, no one, it's hard to quantify the market yet, but if we look at the biggest successes, there was no market for those. And that's, part of the beauty of that, of taking those risks. So you definitely want to do that and balance it, but it's a mix, just like any other sales mix companies think about. Because people, depending on the owners, the shareholders, or whoever, you do have to ensure the long-term success of the companies. You want good companies to thrive and survive, so you definitely want to have a nice balance of that. So it's definitely, I can see the arguments for sure of why it's important. For me, it's like just about how you balance it, really.
And there's actually something Daryl mentioned to me last year when I was talking with him, and he said something along the lines of, you got to give the creative people their vegetables, but also leave room for dessert as well.
Yes. Daryl, our CFO, who is full of wisdom always, and one of my greatest mentors. But yes, I agree with that. Everybody has their way of looking at it, and I think you have to have that balance, but you definitely want to feed the creativity so people have that unrestricted ability to kind of create something beautiful, amazing, and honestly something that people will want to watch, at the end of the day. And also to give people that ability to create their art form, right? So it's definitely a balance, but we definitely value the creativity on our side. So as much as we can feed them the dessert, that's the idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always fascinating to kind of explore some of that, because some of these trends keep evolving, and I think now that we're kind of gearing more towards streaming, the other kind of aspect of this is kind of the movie theater side, right? So can you talk about a little bit about what the role is of movie theaters nowadays?
I do miss what it used to be, because it enabled a lot of, riskier movies sometimes to be made, because that's where the success really boomed. So without the movie theater, that's where the proven concepts kind of have more thrive, because there's this idea that there's an element where you have to there's like fixed revenues that you can get out of different distributions now, versus the theatrical was kind of like this: if it's a success, the people will speak and you will see it show up at the movie theaters. But then where it's heading now, I think the theaters they've been trying to evolve ever since. I love, like, if you go to a theater now, it's like luxury. You sit in like these nice chairs, but it's hard to convince people to get off their own couch to do that, right? With the way, with the COVID pandemic definitely shifted people's habits, but it definitely came back a little bit, but it's not what it was prior to that. And it definitely was on the decline for quite some time. So yeah, no, it's hard. I don't know. It definitely will always play a big role, I think. People, you can escape the experience of the theater, especially certain types of movies, but unfortunately there's a lot of movies that now no longer go there, because you could say they're not made for the theater, they're made for streaming and TV. And so I think that's here to stay, where it now becomes like what gets into the theaters, it has a higher scrutiny, if you will. So yeah, no, it's definitely changed since I remember or loved it. Going to the theater was like the best experience. A way to escape
Hmm.
and experience something exciting. Now it's definitely still has those elements, but it's different and there's less of it. So I think that's for studios and streamers to rethink their content strategy and what they release in theaters versus what they put on their platforms, what they go, so um, it's yeah, we'll see what happens next. I'd love to see more innovation in the space, if you will, and I think that whoever's focused on that, I think, will be the most successful in the theater chains, at least. So we'll see what happens.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely interesting, especially you mentioned some of the genres. Like if you think about horror movies, right? For example, like how does that translate to streaming, right? Because I know that the horror movie community, it's a very, kind of tight knit, kind of niche community that loves going out to the theater and experiencing that together and kind of like this community aspect, as well as some of the other genres too. Like there's certain types of films that have these communities, rallied together. Can you talk a little bit about that? Does that translate to streaming, or do you think theater still has a role in there?
Oh yeah, no, I think you nailed it. There's definitely a huge community there. Admittedly, I'm not in that community. I'm very positive vibes, very like walking out of the theater happy.
Hmm.
Although, crying too if you need to, but I don't I definitely have a huge appreciation for, the horror genre and what they've done. And I think, yeah, that still is kind of one of those genres that really played out well in the theater because you don't have interruptions, if you will, at home. You kind of immerse yourself into like this, space, if you will, that's needed to really experience some of the thrills and the scares, which you might not get if there's ads or things like that popping up in between a horror movie. Another VP I was talking about kind of gave me that point. She was saying like it's hard to watch a horror movie on an AVOD platform, for example,
Mm.
because you'll lose the scares, the emotions, the experience between ads. So that's probably one of the things that happens and why the theater or streaming, I think streaming still works, like SVOD, where no interruptions, you can still watch a horror movie there. But
Hmm.
they're definitely probably right now, Bloomhouse does a really good job there, and they really get some big hits out of there doing the theatrical route still. So um, definitely certain genres play very well in the theater, to your point. I think today, and that kind of speaks true, where I think it's hard to see rom-coms as successful as they used to be in theaters now. So a lot of them, I've noticed, they've just been going straight to streaming, which is still good, and that's kind of like the date night at home type thing, which is still good. But yeah, no, great question. Yeah, I'm sure it'll continue to evolve, and that could not hold true if something else comes up or changes. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Hmm. I know day to day, whenever we're talking, we always like talking about AI and just what's going on in that world. Can you talk a little bit about anything you've seen with AI in the media and entertainment space, or anything you're kind of keeping your eye on?
Yeah, no, I mean, pretty exciting things. I think for definitely understand the concerns on both ends, but if you just look at the technology in the last year, and I'm just talking, look at what ChatGPT does for like your daily life for a lot of people, um, for many different use cases. I think it's become an amazing tool. I don't think it replaces anybody in that sense. I think it just helps us do things better. And I want to look at it as like it's just going to help you do what you do daily. There are people that have like their jobs have transformed, and that's no lie. But there's ways to, I think, benefit to some degree on that. If you focus on it, you don't ignore it. You can't ignore it. And I think what's happening generally in the space, and especially with the technology, with like video and sound and subtitle, like there's just really kind of cool things going on there. Even not from and that replacing people, but tools that will help us do things a lot faster. For things in the dubbing and you know the lab space, I think, will definitely benefit from it. I saw something cool where they could like make one of the most famous actors speak Italian and make their mouth movements match someone that would be uh,
Wow.
proficient local, and you're like, okay, that seems pretty cool, because that's one of the negatives in general to do with like dubbing. It's like
Hmm.
now I can actually feel like I'm watching that person. So people, that probably will open more doors to content, I think, internationally, where it's like something that's made in a specific language can be exposed now to more people. I think that's great. I think that will open doors. It won't close doors, in a way. Um, but we always there's going to be impacts across the board, but you hope the positive is always better than the negative. And I don't think we've seen the full extent of it yet, because we're still in just figuring out stage, but it is moving so fast that
Hmm.
I do these midnight, rabbit hole research things and try to watch as much as I can, and it's never enough. You don't have enough time to keep up
Right.
with it. um but I don't know what, it is exciting from the technology space, and I think we'll figure it out on um of how to make it work for everybody in a good way. That's the idea, I hope. And exciting to see what happens next, because I think what we talk about are what we do in the accounting and finance space. It's like we've had a lot of these innovations over like the last 10, 15, 20 years. It never truly replaces anything. It just continues to make things better. um,
Mm.
and and we've been, uh, I love the idea of trying to make the work, remove some of the mundane work, where you could focus on the judgmental areas. And so hopefully that somehow translates the same way across the board, how people use AI in their industries in general. So again, a tool in my mind is what it really should be, not replace somebody. That I think comes with all kinds of, risk factors. I feel like you could over rely on a technology and it will fail. So you don't want to do that. You just want to make sure. And it always matters who's behind the wheel on those things,
Mm.
as you and I know. Because just the promise of something or the promise of a function, even in like the software industry, means
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
until you see it in action and you see what it actually can do. And we know they're all different. And it
Hmm.
always comes down to those people that are behind the design, the implementation, and all those things. So those matter more than like the ability itself to do something, right? So I think that's super important to keep in mind when people think about trying to use the technology. Because I heard people like, when the software industry people let go people, they're like, I can do coding on
Yeah.
my own. I can just tell it what to do. And this is not the safe thing to do.
Hmm.
So again, as a tool, fantastic. As a replacement of people and good judgment, that's, you don't want to go too far with that. Otherwise, too quickly, it could fail you.
Well, I think there's kind of two camps when it comes to AI, right? There's this one camp that believes that AI is just going to take over the world and just take everything over. But there's this other camp, I think, that sees it more symbiotic. Which camp do you think you fall in?
Uh, I definitely understand the risks. I've watched all those movies too, and people throw them out for scare factor, right? The Matrix,
Hmm.
Terminator, and even more recently, I guess there's more. There's definitely the unknown, but it's almost like we always knew this technology would come to be. So I'm not on the camp that it's going to replace us or be the end of the world type bucket. I definitely think it's definitely going to help us, but everything comes with like, it's how much you focus on it and how much you nurture it. And if you will, if you ignore it, then yeah, crazy stuff can happen, but I don't think it's anything crazy like the end of the world. I think the technology is just something that is something to pay attention to for everybody right now. And everybody is, which is good. And I think, the less people start referring to AI, because it's not just AI. If a way, like, there's like the
Hmm.
language models, like understanding that term has just been very exposed by the media of like a bad, a bad thing sometimes. And it's definitely
Hmm.
has some very positive impacts. I would love to see it, like it's just so I know nothing about it, and I try my best to catch up with you on these topics and
Yeah.
just try to do my best to educate. But there's so many experts in the field. There's so many layers to it, and so I think we just need to get better educated across the board in general, so we don't kind of refer to it like the boogeyman, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
But
fascinating.
yeah, I guess I'm not in that doomsday camp for sure. But um, yeah, no, I think it's something we gotta focus in on and pay attention and not make it trivial or ignore it.
You think ever like something like ChatGPT could write a movie script and have it just be the next box office hit? Like, do you see that as being possible?
Oh, it's possible for sure. I mean, is it going to happen? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of legal implications with that because the way it's doing, uh, it's leveraging written scripts right now, right? If I believe correctly,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we really got to, kind of ensure we protect, the IP rights creators correctly. So will there ever be a movie? I mean, there's movies, there's a lot of inspiration for movies in general, whether you have an AI or not. People are always
Mm-hmm.
influenced. You watch 1,000 movies in your lifetime. And you write a script. I'm sure you have inspiration, and so can ChatGPT get that same inspiration for sure? But there's definitely legal implications, I think, of just having an AI do it itself. I think there's more. I think going back to the concept of the tool idea, where I think it'll definitely be more impactful. Where somebody still has their original idea, they're just help me format this into the proper structure or something like help me cut down. Like I've definitely spoken to writers and they've said there is an element where it could help, but don't not to take away their job for sure. It's just to like let them spend most of the time creating the idea and like refining it without there could be silly things they need to do in editing and reformatting and things like that we do in the finance world. I can translate that. There's a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
80% effort to just do things they're not like judgmental, right? It's just like clean up, do things that are not fun if you call admin, but not adding any value. It is and it's not. It's definitely adding
Mm-hmm.
value, but it's not like adding to the idea. We're adding that, important input you need to do as a human, to give that. So I I would really love to see what it could do, but I would rather somebody uses it as a tool but still has their original idea come out of it. So I'm hoping it just helps more writers get into writing. Maybe that's what my view on that would be, rather than let the AI do its thing. Because I think people will put less value to it anyways if they don't. I think what's interesting is people will worry they'll replace, but then it's just like people would rather. I don't know what's the word. They'd rather say this was written by a human than they'd rather watch that
Authentic.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they would. It's not like they wouldn't want to look at that, but I think that would have more value. So I'm hoping it's like has the effect people aren't expecting it to. Maybe, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting because intellectual property is always like fascinating when it comes to just creative work in general. Like, how important do you think it is just to have originality now, given all these
Oh,
changes coming?
huge, huge. Yeah, no, I think that one's probably the biggest. That's probably the biggest thing. Most important thing is like I think uh, people respond to my original or true stories. Those things you can't really make up. Sorry, the true stories you can't make up, but obviously the
Mhm.
original ideas. I think people love that. I love that. Like that's probably what draws us out to the theater, to the streaming platforms. Like I said, going back to the original ideas, things that people haven't done before, taking risks, doing things, not doing the normal things. I think that
Mhm.
is, to your point, I think will stand out. And that's definitely what I think a human has to do, because if you
Yeah,
think about AI, it will definitely be able to create maybe something new, but it's based on something that was already done. Right. So,
yeah,
um, I don't know it can crack that well enough yet, but I don't want to say never because AI is super powerful. in many other ways. And so it's definitely possible, but I think the value we will place on it, knowing that someone did it versus the AI only, I think will hopefully play out better for writers in general or creators. So yeah, exciting to see what happens, but I really hope, that's really the outcome in a way.
Yeah, it's AI is always fascinating. And from like a production standpoint, though, like, do you see just a shift in general? Like, I think I've been noticing a little bit of a lot of that going more in-house as opposed to necessarily keeping your production external. Is that something you've kind of been noticing too?
No, I mean, no, I don't know, I guess, in a way. It's definitely, there's, I guess your question is like, would studios bring in the production in house? Is that what you're kind of think?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. I don't. I think most studios will continue to leverage producers, good producers, um, and it might not be that. It might be, um, I would say, more in the post side. That's probably where
Hmm.
a lot of action will be with AI, I think. But I don't know necessarily means you bring that in house or not. I think that goes back to my original point. You can't pretend you know how to do something if you don't know how to do it, even with the help of AI. So just because you can have access to a tool that can do, you're like, I can do all this now, just tell it what to do. I still think you need people in those expertise fields and things like that. So, you know, and that's definitely happening. I think a lot of those post houses and the special effects area, they're definitely probably trying to figure out how to leverage it as best they can, and they already are. They're already ahead of the game. In fact, I bet you most have been on this for years. This isn't just something that just happened today. They've been probably thinking about it way more than that. So, no, I, I can't comment on the mix there, but I think it's definitely gonna be a big. It's already a big tool right now for them, so I'm sure it's gonna continue to be a huge thing in terms of a strategy for that area. But in terms of production, um, yeah, no, it depends on what you're making. I guess at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
yeah, yeah. That's I think certainly insightful because it. I guess it just depends on each producer and I guess content team, like what it is that they're kind of going for. I think there's multiple models that can work there. From I guess if we pivot back a little bit to your role at Mar Vista, could you talk a little bit about day to day? Like I think you guys have a connection with your guys' production team, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah, I mean, we work with a ton of producers. Producing well over 100 films a year, and those aren't. We have definitely a lot of interaction externally and internally, and we're managing. From the finance accounting side, it's how do you track all those movies, right? How do you bring in
Mm-hmm.
that information in house as streamlined as you can? Everybody uses different accounting systems, especially producers, and they could use Excel. They could use some of the top service offers within the payroll production area. So it's how do you consolidate it is really our challenge, right? And how do
Mm-hmm.
you work to standardize some things and things you can? I think Anaplan has some of the solution for us on that side. But it's not the only thing we're doing. We're doing some really great things with other, offerings from other partners from a production standpoint, to help streamline all those multiple productions across multiple producers. And so we're definitely in this space of trying to leverage as much as we can. But yeah, no, it definitely, that's where the volume challenge comes in for us,
Yeah.
working with different sets of people, different sets of systems, and trying to just
Mm-hmm.
ensure accuracy, completeness, and just trying to get it all reported timely. That's the key. So definitely has a huge impact on our team having to think about that. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. I think it did. So what does your day to day look like, just in general? VP of Finance at Mar Vista.
Yeah, no. I definitely have new challenges daily. Working with a lot of our leaders and my teams, the production finance teams, the FP&A teams, and the accounting teams. Um, so it's really just how do we empower uh, them to be open to the technology to help make their lives better, to try to avoid, you know, doing too many things manually where they can avoid it, but also to be engaged in what they're doing, and giving them opportunities to do something that's interesting and building something new. I think that's kind of been our goal. And we've been very thoughtful in terms of how we try to scale out and plan for the next thing. And it's always just having a long term focus has been key. Um, but yeah, the day to day really is just how do you manage the people, how do you manage the challenges and the goals and the deadlines, especially within finance accounting. There are hard deadlines, and especially in a public company, you have hard deadlines to get that information out to the right people to make the right decisions, but also to be in compliance. So you're juggling a lot of different things there. So that's kind of part of the challenge, but also it's just trying to upskill people, give them the tools, give them I guess, the way to think about how to approach problems and how to think about it from an efficiency standpoint, but also accuracy, quality standpoint. And it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of in a good way, but it's also managing the resources we have and the team members we have to kind of do it as effective as we can. And also just acknowledging the things we can't do. So that's always important, and prioritization for us, and just making sure we're working on the most important thing, that's the most urgent thing, and making sure you schedule things around that, and being organized has been kind of the critical thing for me, and just being able to give good communication. So we figure out ways to do that. Our day to day, we have daily huddles that can just be 15 minutes. It sounds crazy, but especially in the pandemic, that was really important to do that when everybody was remote. I think that was a huge challenge for us. But then also we were so ready for it as a team that I think it almost felt less impactful in a way, in a good way. And now we have like a hybrid schedule. So we're back in the office, and we're also remote. And I think that the habits have we've kept them going because it's really helped us manage the team and those targets. So a little bit of the day to day, I guess, challenges I see and been working through.
Do you have any advice you would give to any people managers out there? Is there anything that inspired you, or any inspiration you take as a manager?
Oh, yes. I would say you can never know everything. And I've been managing people, I guess you could say, for like 8 years already. And I push for us to do, continuous improvement. I guess just try to like learn to do things differently, because everything is always changing. And we just held a training for managers. And there's things in there I still took away that were like, I really wish I knew about that. It's just like, there's a really good study, I think, by Harvard called like the monkey on your back, or I could have screwed that up. But we call it, internally at Fox, we use it like a rocks concept, where it's like you carry all these big priorities in your backpack. I thought that was really great. But when you manage people, you can tend to grab other people's rocks as they just throw you any challenges or issues, and you end up reporting back to them like, I'll get back to you. And that kind of does a disservice to them, and it also creates like huge legs and delays in trying to resolve things. So it's like, how do you empower them but also be there for them in the right way? So a lot of it's just like, not taking those responsibilities away, but allowing them to be there as a guide and also a thought partner, so that they can feel like they got to the right answer on their own. So I thought that was really, really helpful. This is just a great timely question there, Daanish. But yeah, no, I'd say you definitely have to focus on your people in the way that they do everything, and without them, you can't do anything. And so if you're not there, if you don't know what they're up to, if you don't know their day to day, or you can't even tell me how they do what they do, then there's something you need to like learn or get willing to go in the weeds for an hour or two, just to make sure you can help them or put yourself in their shoes so that you can help guide them in the right way. So I always think that's like really important to do, and also show them that you're there with them also, but also giving them the ability to learn on their own and the ability to make decisions. So definitely something, some pointers there, but yeah, you never know. You can always improve. And you can definitely, when you start to manage managers, I think that's something it's good to think about, because it's a different way of managing. And that's something that like I used to approach the same way, managing people that were individual contributors versus a manager. And you think, oh, you know what? There's extra things you need to continue to do, and you have to make time for your people. That I think is number one, because if you don't make time for them, then you're doing them a disservice, but also you might be doing things you shouldn't be doing. We have ability to make ourselves super busy and not delegate the right way. So to make time for the things that are important. So as a manager, that is managing people. So, so if you're not doing that mostly in your day to day, then you're not managing. So that's a good way of just saying, oh, maybe I need to change something up, or I just need to make more touch points. So try to touch point as much as you can with your team, give one-on-ones, and really see what makes them tick, but also be sure to give the message of things you need and the things you want them to do.
Yeah, I certainly like that. It's more of like a people-centric approach, and I like that you mentioned you're not afraid to get into the weeds when you need to. I've seen you do that, of course. Anyone that's inspired you in your journey?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I feel more often than not, I get inspired by those that are working for me in a way that, just seeing how their minds evolve and work and look at problems differently. But yeah, no, having a great mentor is really helpful. Lucky to have an amazing mentor at our company, and our CFO, who's been there for me for the last 5 years in ways that, most people haven't. So you have to find someone that is, it's a mutual agreement that they're going to be there for you in that mentor capacity. So it's almost like you have to have that conversation. You can't just, follow someone along and think you know what's going on, because you'll never have those detailed, really critical conversations that are like couple words, maybe even just a couple sentences. They could be just like, honestly, it could be just words of wisdom, if you will. With who just Charlie Munger just passed, and if you just download his top 10 quotes, you will find 10 quotes to live by. So definitely love following him and Warren Buffett. So they're a huge influence in terms of how you think about business and try to uncomplicate things. I feel like they've been inspirational, across the board, in a world where people will always claim to know the best way of doing things. And it's nice to be grounded and think things, to uncomplicate things. So those have been huge inspirations. And I think just in general, like those in the tech industry and just, some of the innovations that have come up in the last 10 years, I think it's just been great to follow. Won't name names, but they just seeing what's happened in the last 5 years, 10 years, there's so much happening. It's amazing to see what people are capable of. And so that's inspirational to just constantly learn. So that's kind of the way I've approached it. And obviously there's people that, I've followed and just appreciated their work ethic. I think a lot of people I've seen become successful are just really focused on learning, not about, how hard something is or, how many hours you got to work. I think it's just being able to take something away from what you're doing is how you can continue to succeed. So that's, if I had to put some inspiration for me, myself, it's been there. But yeah, a lot of names to name, but those are kind of some of the key inspirations for me.
Yeah,
and you too, Daanish. You inspire me in terms of just thinking about how to problem solve and really listen in. So just to call you out, because we've just been working for so it's nice to see someone as young as you just being really have their stuff together in terms of thinking in this world of changing and evolving problems. So definitely worth calling out.
Oh, well, that's really kind of you. I think the feeling is definitely mutual, and I think consultants and clients aren't supposed to get along like this, Jeff. Are we doing something wrong?
No, it's called that's how I found you. Remember, just to tell everybody, Daanish, when I first met Daanish, he was, we met at a conference and he's like, yeah, I have a podcast that talks about that. Like, who has a podcast on Anaplan? You're giving away your free advice. I was like, what's going on? But within like 5 minutes, just to give an example, Daanish and team just like threw me free pieces of advice, if you will, things that people would hold back, be like, oh, I got a solution for that, but they just won't give it to you. And you're like, well, giving an idea is nothing. In terms, execution is the most important value. So just seeing someone that's just willing to help solve a problem, I think is really important in that, partner relationship for consulting, because unfortunately there's this element of not being invested. You get invested. And so there's definitely great consultants out there like you that do listen and get invested and want, not trying to make things overcomplicated, but also just to make sure that, the problems are solved in the right way. The thing with Anaplan, just knowing that you can do things 5 different ways is super frustrating in many aspects, because you realize without the right partner or someone that can help, you're doing things inefficient. And you could have a model for us that was just like too big. And you're like, oh, had we done like changed, like, I kid you not, that sum function, just like reduce volume. You're like, oh my gosh, that's all, those are the details that matter. And you can't get there with like someone else diving into the weeds and asking the right question. So yeah, we're doing something right, Daanish, not wrong. I would say it that way.
Well, that's really great to hear. And yeah, I think, just some of those principles, right? Like, if I know there's some other folks that might want to gatekeep some of the knowledge that they may have, or, there's other firms out there that may choose to be perceived a certain way, or kind of put out an image, or tend to, focus more on optics rather than actual results. And if you don't know something, there's kind of this inclination, not like I'm very honest when I say, oh, I don't know, but just being real and authentic and not trying to fake it. And I think
so one thing that we do in our organization, and I'm happy you highlighted that point, is the strength of a team really starts with that vulnerability and trust. And when it's not working, when someone's not being honest with you or just not telling you. We really promote the idea of, like, if you don't know it, you say it. That way we can teach it, or at least we can figure it out in the right way. It allows you to just just eliminate a whole lot of wasted time of just assuming someone knows something. And that vulnerability, that trust is what makes it successful, I would say, for us and within our team. That's we definitely, you nailed it in terms of what makes it work. If you don't have that, people trying to pretend they know more than they do, that's hard. That's really hard to like navigate. And then when you find out and it's over. It's like,
right.
So it's better to be open and honest, and that way we know where to start from. And I think I appreciate that, about you too as well. Just seeing it's not like, I don't know. It's like, I know where we can start and figure out the answer. That's super key too. Because then you bring up solutions that I don't even know how to like get to that approach or find outside resources to do something like that. So that, I think, is what makes it a successful relationship there.
Yeah, well, it's definitely collaborative, right? Because without the ideas that you guys will throw an idea, then we'll go work on it, and we'll like iterate or think of something else.
I Steve Jobs you. I'm like, I want the music there, make it work. You do it. But I think having that appreciation for how hard it is super important. So you guys we've been trying to learn as much as we can in the system. You can't, to that point, you can't just like not engage with whatever you're working on in that sense and just ask for things without understanding the complexity. And I think you'll be like, hey, that is what I think is complex. You're like, I can do in a day. And then things that I think are simple, you're like, that's going to take like a month. And you're like, okay, great context. Those are super important to kind of understand why that is. And then you can really figure out how to like approach or plan out the right projects within, right? So no, for sure.
Yeah, I think for any of the consultants out there too, it's the relationship. Just to me is what matters the most, right? And like the work is always going to be there. The technical, like the model building and the formulas and all of that stuff is never going to go away. But if you have that relationship, I think that's ultimately what's critical.
No, I agree, 100%.
Right. Well, Geoff, is there anything you would want to leave the audience with as we wrap up here?
That was a great question. Yeah, no, I think to highlight the points that we kind of covered is just, being open to change with the technology shifts that's happening, constant learning, and finding the right people to work with, whether internally or externally, to build that right trust to kind of navigate those unknown challenges ahead, you know. But I think that's kind of what makes it exciting. But yeah, no, excited to see what happens next in the industry and then the whole tech space. But yeah, wish everybody success there and good holidays as well.
Yeah. Well, certainly appreciate you coming on, Geoff. Thanks for being the first guest on the show. I think it really means a lot, and just from my standpoint, I think it was really important to have someone that means a lot to me to be that first guest, because it is important. So really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. I'm honored, and I wish you all the success. And I'm going to be alongside you to watch it happen.
All right. Well, yeah. Cheers to the future.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Daanish.
All right.